My name is Lisa Pope Freitas. I was born with a disorder. I suffered a traumatic birth, lack of oxygen, almost died at birth. But basically, the disorder was noticeable from the time I was a really little girl. My mother would often have to repeat information on both the left and right side of my ear, because oftentimes what happens in the brain is the information that passes through the corpus callosum it gets mixed up. So if somebody tells you something, you can hear it really differently from what they actually said, especially anytime you're in any type of competing background noise. So if I go to a family reunion and my mom comes from a really large family, so if people are talking, I can hear them talking, but I just can't hear what they're saying. I've been suffering all my life for 44 years. When I was younger and I was a little girl, I was in speech and language therapy because when I went to kindergarten, I had a 23-month delay. They knew in 1981 when I went to school that I had central auditory processing disorder. The only problem is the audiologist and speech pathologist had no way to test for it back then. Now I found out that yes, they've had tests ever since the 1950s, but not every audiologist practices testing for central auditory processing disorder. They just test for hearing and that's it. They checked my hearing and found out that I had high frequency hearing loss, which that's also been with me since I've been in kindergarten. Most likely I probably had it from the time I was born. So when I went to kindergarten, I'm dealing with high frequency hearing loss. I'm dealing with problems and not being able to hear in background noise. I'm often losing my concentration. I was having a lot of trouble. It was hard to learn to read. It was hard to learn to spell. Everything was hard because you can't hear it right. You can't hear correctly. My short-term memory was horrible because when I would hear information and I would take it in, I couldn't remember 2 minutes later. I couldn't remember 30 seconds later what I had heard. And oftentimes growing up, I would have to ask people to repeat what they were telling me. And it just really was bothersome to me. And as I got older, it got worse. I entered speech and language therapy. I started making rapid progress when I was a little girl. And by the time I was in the 5th grade, they took me out of speech and language therapy, and at that point in time they actually did it with no testing, so they broke the law when they did that. So for years I went through regular classroom and regular classes being far behind everybody else. When I was 16 and I went to the audiologist, luckily there was another audiologist in the same office that I noticed tested for the disorder. So I went over and I got tested for central auditory processing disorder, and we were able to finally have a medical diagnosis for it. Therapy was recommended, but yet I couldn't find anybody to do therapy. I also suffer from tinnitus. I have since I've been 16 years old. I hear continual ringing and buzzing in my ear. Would always lip read all my life. That's how I would figure it out. I couldn't sleep at night. I would be up because my ears would ring, they would buzz. I could hear my pulse in my ears. Basically, when I was diagnosed with it, I was told there was no treatment and there was nothing I could do. I entered college in fall of 1997 at ASU. I went back to speech and language therapy I realized I couldn't correct my disorder, but I could learn whole language skills around my reading and writing, because they were pretty important to be able to keep up so that I could complete college, which I completed it successfully. I was a business major and I graduated. I was retested in 1998 for auditory processing disorder again, and it was there, hadn't changed. So, but I still had no recourse. I had asked, do you have therapy for the auditory processing disorder? And they told me no. I work in a call center for Express Scripts Pharmacy, servicing for the DoD. And as I began to get older, because I've been there for 12 and a half years, I noticed when I was working in office, suddenly I'm speaking louder, and I would get messages from my boss telling me, can you lower your voice, please? I was having trouble hearing on the phone and around the competing background noise that was around me. It was hard to be able to hear. In 2018, I found online an audiologist by the name of Mike Webb who could retest for auditory processing disorder because of the fact that the criteria had changed from when I was tested in 1998. So I came into this office and he did the full testing on me. The disorder does exist, it's there because it never goes away. And I told him I'm interested in therapy. And he gave me a list of everything that was possible that was out there that I could do. And when I was in here, I noticed Dana's name. I knew her from ASU, from when I went in the late 90s. And I recognized her name, and I knew I was in the right place to come and to get help. And I started in on therapy because I noticed, like, as I began to get older, that I was having a harder time being able to hear. I was having a harder time being able to concentrate. My coordination was getting worse. I noticed that as I continued with it, things started to improve. All of a sudden, my handwriting got better. Like, I can write legibly now, where I couldn't do it before. I noticed that all of a sudden, my voice got lower at work, like I was talking at a normal level. I noticed that I could be able to start to hear someone on the phone. Suddenly, I can remember large numbers in my head that I hear. I can repeat them back. If somebody tells me something, I can remember it 2 minutes later because of the fact that it actually helped me improve my short-term memory. It made me feel great. It made me feel good about myself. I've never been a quitter in my life. I've always been a really hard worker. Where I could have given up and it was hard, I never did. And that was just a thing. I always wanted more. So if somebody was trying to put me in a box and say, you can only do X, Y, and Z, no, there's more outside the box. So you gotta strive and you gotta keep going. You can't let society or anybody else put you down. You can't. I've never let anybody do it to me. There was no treatment. There was nothing when I was younger that anyone was willing to do to help. Suddenly I come in here and that's another thing that we were able to tackle. This office is fabulous. It's one of the best offices, in my opinion, in the Valley compared to other audiology offices that I've been into. You can't get any better than here. Everyone is really nice, really, really helpful. I think the world of Dana. I think the world of Miller. I think the world of everyone who works in this office. Clemente. Clemente went and he did the therapy with me 3 days a week. I would come on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. He was just always positive, even if I came in and I didn't do as well as I have on the previous session. I just keep going. And he goes, don't worry about it. It's okay. Just keep going. Just keep trying. And I would come back. In fact, I look forward to coming to the sessions. It's just in this office, it's a different atmosphere. Most offices try to push you out the door. Because most people, you go in and they don't even smile at you or say hello. I've been in offices like that before. You know, they just try to tell you, here's your test results. You came in, I'll see you in a year. Bye. Not this office. They don't do that here. You're talked to like a person. You're treated like a person. Dana is wonderful. She'll come out and talk to you just to see how you're doing. And if you have questions, she'll talk to you at length. Everyone has been really positive, and I just think the world of this office. All we can do is just ask questions and learn. No one should be afraid to talk to their doctor or radiologist. In here, you don't have that fear. I've never experienced it, and I don't feel anyone else should. A lot of people are afraid to. I think because of the way society treats a disabled person. You know, they're going to be misjudged or mistreated. It took me 20 years to find an audiology office that could treat me for the disorder. I've had a lot of success here in being able to manage 2 problems. Absolutely, it gives you a good feeling of accomplishment. You know, just being able to live, you know, being able to enjoy life without worry. I would recommend anybody to come here, any of my family, friends, anyone. You can't get any better than here.